afternoon. Welcome to our Interfaith Symposium. This is our afternoon session. Our new normal, the importance of rituals in our daily lives. My name is Jessica Delgado, and I am one of the coordinators here at the ADAPT Coalition. I have here Joel Torres, manager of ADAPT, as well as Gwinnera Curry, our chairperson of our Interfaith Committee, along with our presenter, Phil McCabe from Rutgers University. Just gonna do some housekeeping before we get started. Okay, so who we are. So for those that don't know who we are, there's a little bit of background music or sound that I hear. Okay, thank you. Okay, the ADAPT Coalition is dedicated to reducing substance abuse and improving overall health of all residents in Essex County. Our Interfaith Committee empowers the faith-based leaders of Essex County to understand and engage in issues affecting overall wellness in the community. The chairperson is Gwinnera Curry, our chairman is Michael Doherty, and our secretary is Demetricia Barnes. All right, so participant audio and video are turned off during the presentation. We will try our best to turn the audio back on during Q&A. I'm not sure we're able to do that completely. Regardless, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please use the Q&A box on your screen, not the chat box, just so it's easier for us to get those questions and have our panelists answer them more easily. Feel free to use the chat box to chat with each other or to share other information. The webinar will be recorded and available on our YouTube channel at Essex Adapt. At the end of the webinar, you will be directed to an evaluation page. If you could please complete that. And last but not least, we are having a raffle throughout our symposium. Our symposium is going to be throughout 4 days, 4 Thursdays in October, concluding on October 29th. On that day, during closing remarks, we will do our drawing for our raffles, and we will be giving away gift certificates for restaurants in our local areas that have been hit by the pandemic. So for every session that you attend, you will receive 2 entries. And for attending the resource fair, which will also be held on the last day on October 29th, you will receive 5 entries for participating. So may the best people win. Oh, sorry. Okay. We'll end it there, and I'm going to transition over to Phil McCabe so he can do his presentation. So stop share.
On mute, okay. Jessica, you're seeing my screen now?
Yes, we're good.
Yes.
Okay. All right, very good then. Well, thank you everyone for joining us here today. Very happy to, again, continuing working with you as far as resiliency. And I appreciate the topic for this month's actually series on spirituality and wellness. So let me begin. I can briefly just acknowledge myself as being a certified social worker, a certified addiction specialist, a certified domestic violence counselor, and a disaster response crisis counselor. I also want to say that the opinions that I share today are my own opinions and not reflecting of Rutgers University, the New Jersey Board of Social Work Examiners, or any other group that I belong to. And there are times that I will be sharing information that comes directly from the Center for Disease Control, and of course I will acknowledge where those resources are located and how you can also get a copy of them. So, as we begin, I just want to begin by taking a moment and encouraging all of you to just kind of center yourself. For me, it's been a long day. I was here for this morning's presentation, but I know when I'm, watching a computer screen for a long period of time, my eyes get a little bleary and my body gets a little tired. So let's just do a little mindfulness relaxation. What you see on your screen is a beautiful scene from one of our lakes in northern New Jersey. So I'm just going to ask you to just take in a deep breath. Just breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in and breathe out. Just allow your body to find its own natural rhythm with your breath. Just appreciate each breath that you take as you breathe it in. And as you exhale, any residual stress, anxiety, exhaustion, whatever it is you might be feeling that might be negative in your body, just visualize yourself exhaling it. And as you breathe in, you can focus on the picture and just take in the beauty and the splendor of the world around us, the beauty of nature, the gifts we received. Just breathe that in and allow it to come into your being. Again, just breathe in and breathe out. Okay, so let us begin. I'm going to begin by explaining some of the areas we're going to be covering today. This is a presentation that was developed for the faith-based communities. However, we also know there are other community members that might be with us, along with public health professionals and first responders, first receivers, healthcare workers. So it really can be very genetically modified to many different individuals. So we're going to talk about how we have to make modifications in most of the rituals that we engage in, and this is caused by our current pandemic, the COVID-19. And it's also important, and part of rituals is that it helps us to maintain balance in our life, and here we are having to find balance with our work, our home, and our family. We're also going to spend a little time talking about planning ahead. What do we hope to accomplish in the next couple of months, or for even this year going into 2021? What we hope to accomplish. So I'm going to ask you that if you have any ideas you want to share with others, please share them in the chat box so that others can also read them. And again, ideas specifically to rituals, whatever is important to you as far as sharing rituals and ideas moving in through the pandemic. And then we're going to also include some resources for you to find some additional information, okay? So we know that the current pandemic is basically, I think if we're honest, we need to be honest with ourselves that we're all dealing with a lot of stress. We're dealing with a lot of stress and a lot of chaos. It's affecting us personally and also professionally. And it's also affecting some of the daily activities that we enjoy, particularly some that are related to rituals. Now, not all rituals are done daily, but even our daily rituals are being interrupted. So let's begin by just having an understanding of what we mean by rituals. Rituals mean many different things to different people. The term rituals comes from Latin, has a Latin root. It means of having of nature, or is done as a rite or a ritual, such as a ritual dance. So it can be used as both an adjective and a noun, okay? But it's often something that other people will observe with us or we share with other people, but we can also have a ritual that's part of our own individual practices also. So since the beginning of time, we have involved ourselves in different types of rituals, but we know that right now they're being challenged. Our ideas and the concepts that we have and the things that we enjoy and we engage in, or the ways we honor others with our rituals has been drastically affected. And oftentimes rituals also are part of the transition that we have as far as our life and our life experiences, our acknowledgements to other about life's transitions also. Many times rituals, even in rituals of grief, we do find comfort in that we're having an acknowledgement, so it can be very soothing, and also that our involvement in rituals can give us a sense of control. When I talk about a sense of control, I like to use this story. Let me go back to this one for a minute. I want you to think about your morning ritual. Think about what it is like for you when you first wake up. Are you turning off an alarm clock? Do you even set an alarm clock? Do you, reach for your glasses? Do you get your feet out of the bed? Do you start stretching while you're in bed? Do you get up and start walking around a little bit? Are you slow to get up? Or do you pick up your phone and check messages? Do you turn on your TV and look for the news? Whatever it is, it's part of your morning ritual. Sometimes we wake our way into the kitchen or into the bathroom. We take care of our daily business. And then we, again, in the kitchen, I know that I like to make my coffee. And that's part of my morning ritual. It's kind of like me time to just sit with my morning coffee and enjoy that. And I actually have one of those coffee makers that can, I don't have the newer one, but I have the old standard Mr. Coffee that has a timer on it. So I can make my coffee the night before and then set it to go off right as my alarm goes off. Well, have you ever had one of those times where whatever you did, you didn't do it right? Maybe you forgot to put water in the back of it, or maybe you forgot to set the timer. You set it for AM instead of, PM instead of AM. Whatever it is, it disrupts your ritual, And it can be that moment of frustration because, walking into the kitchen, my anticipation is I'm going to have my morning cup of coffee. I'm going to sit. I'm going to do a little meditation. I might have a little inspirational readings to do. Whatever it is, it's part of my ritual. But just that simple fact of not having my coffee ready, or the worst case scenario, of course, is when the coffee is made, but the coffee grounds are now leaked all over into the pot or onto the floor. And, I'm just pointing out there's many different ways that rituals can get disrupted. And we need to be mindful that when there is that disruption, not to allow us, with my coffee ritual, to send me off kilter for the whole day, or at least for the whole morning. Well, I think the same lesson that we know is we have to kind of bounce back when we have a disruption. That's what we're experiencing right now with COVID-19. A lot of our rituals are being disrupted. And we can spend a lot of time focusing on the negativity. Oh, I can't do this and I can't do that. But that robs us from our life purpose, and our life purpose should be about living our life. So living our lives, we need to focus on the positive. So maybe we're not doing things the same way we've always done them, but we're learning new ways to do them. And we can celebrate that also. Something that is often commonly connected to a ritual are some of the physical sensations that we have. This can be readings, it can be music, it can be dance, it can be objects, it could be many, many different things that are sometimes combined with our rituals. So even though COVID is affecting us in many different ways, we can still keep our connectiveness to some of the things that have meaning in the rituals that we have and that we find safety and security in. And again, the point of the ritual is that it gives us that sense of connectiveness. And if we don't maintain that connectiveness, then often our fear base is going to take over. Now, for many of us, rituals can also be connected to our religious beliefs. And there are others who practice a spirituality that also is connected to some of their rituals. And for some of them, it's kind of a shared that gives us our belief, our comfort, our reflection, our ethics, our awe, our enjoyment, all comes from some of the rituals that we have, be they either religious or spiritual in nature. So we have a lot of everyday rituals, again, that are being disrupted. And that can be an addition to our frustration level. And I think part of what we want to be mindful of is how we can maintain our resiliency. Resiliency is something that we learn. It's not something that we are born with. We learn to be resilient. So many of us learn to adapt to change. Well, we have to utilize the same mechanisms about dealing with change in our lives to deal with increasing our resiliency during COVID-19. A lot of our even every common day actions, such as shaking hands or saying hello, are actually part of the rituals that we have as we greet each other, and we know that they have been affected. I know many people, we've adjusted to a lot of the different things that we've had to endure during this pandemic, and I still hear repeatedly from many people is, what I really miss is just kind of being with somebody, having a connectiveness, going into my town and saying hello to my neighbors, or just kind of, just being comfortable in my interaction with others. And again, we need to be mindful that for now we need to do what is safe and to practice the safe recommendations, particularly as far as keeping our physical distance. I say it all the time. We sometimes keep hearing the term social distance. It doesn't mean that we can't be social, but however we are being social, we need to practice a physical distance, and that becomes important. Again, going back to our use of rituals, rituals are incorporated to signify important events and rites of passages that are connected anytime from birth to death. Okay. Rituals can also be a change in our status, graduation rituals, advancements in our career, getting certain recognitions, social recognitions, relationship recognitions, forming a partnership with somebody, having that partnership of marriage either by a wedding or a ceremony, the birth of a child, can all be different things that we incorporate into. It's part of our life activities, but we share them with other individuals in some of the rituals that we have created. We also are mindful of, and again, I'm being very mindful in my presentation style, to recognize the diversity. So I try to be as inclusive as I can. As you notice, my background, for those who might be less familiar with it, is considered the Inclusivity Pride banner, because it has the traditional 6-color gay pride banner, but it also includes the transgender colors, the pink and blue and white, and then we have the Black Lives Matters inclusive of the brown and black colors included. So it's kind of a combination. And again, as a member of the gay community, I really have been very moved anytime I see someone sharing the rainbow flag. And I'm not here chastising anyone who might be using the traditional rainbow flag, but for some of us, we've also kind of had to adapt to a newer version or different versions of different celebrations and different pride events and things like that. So I'm just explaining that particular banner that I'm using here today, because it also, for me, is a representation of diversity. So in today's presentation, I am going to try to be as representative of different diversities, but I don't think anyone can fully talk about the whole range of diversities that exist within our communities and societies. We have rituals that are also acknowledgments of illness, of death, but also of recovery. We celebrate. And we have seen celebrations of people that are healing. And this is not new. I mean, this is just not new with the pandemic. I have several friends who have been cancer-free, and sometimes after an annual anniversary, be it their first year or second year or onto the third, fourth, or fifth year, and they announce that they've been cancer-free for X amount of time, it's a cause for celebration. And they share that with others who they interact with, particularly close friends and family members, as an acknowledgement of what they were able to overcome as far as what could have been a more severe crisis situation. So what we're doing now is we're celebrating a lot of our special occasions online. And I think that this is really important, that at least we have the technology to do this. With technology, we are able to connect with many, many different people. For some of us who are kind of the generation, and we got introduced to being online with America Online. Remember when we first had that, and you had to do that dial-up and everything? But it was amazing. For me, I remember when it first started, America Online, because of course I had used the internet previously for work responsibilities, but it wasn't that really friendly. But to go into a platform like America Online and be able to find friends that I have either lost contact with or don't get as much contact with, and to find them and be able to chat with them. And now we have so many others, of course, you know, Facebook and Instagram and some, but the point is that there's so many different ways that we can connect with people. And we also want to be mindful of, and we're definitely, as our schools went into distant learning, we recognize that for some families, internet access was not always accessible to them. So we had to make some modifications to make sure that people could get online when they needed to. We also know that we can use our smartphones, if we have a smartphone, to connect with others. The important thing is that we are devising ways to connect, to share and talk with others. And even in the Zoom platform, if you don't have access to the video option on your Zoom, you can also call in just with a phone line. And I know in my presentations, I've spoke to many different agencies, and in some agencies, there isn't a computer available for each staff member. So in keeping physical distance, they rely on their phones to actually participate in the workshop. And then we send them a copy of the PowerPoint later. By the way, I will be sending you a PDF version of this presentation when we're done, okay? But again, the reason why I'm talking about this right now is I just want to emphasize that even under the difficult situations we're dealing with, part of our rituals and being connected to others is actually, I think, a little bit more important than it was in previous years, where sometimes we could just take it for granted that we would be seeing someone eventually in person, face to face, or through a visit or something like that. So now we have to be a little bit more diligent as far as scheduling some time, but it's very easy to do, and there's several different platforms that you can use to do that. So beyond the connectiveness of just kind of communicating and talking with someone, many times families or individuals have rituals around sharing a meal. So sharing a meal together, we now know that, you know, groups or individuals and families are sharing certain holiday meals virtually, online, talking to other people while they're enjoying their meal, be it for a religious observance or just a family gathering. And as I think, again, I'm mindful of who I'm speaking to, I imagine many people from the faith community take on the responsibility of also helping with food inequalities and to make sure that food gets to our underserved population. So therefore, you know, food distribution is very, very important right now. And I know many of you are working in the communities to do that. But sometimes, again, I think that we might be in a position where we could remind others about the important needs, about why we need to keep our food supply replenished in our food banks and in our soup kitchens or food pantries. And I use this here, the center picture is about, it was a wedding couple that had food and flowers ordered for their wedding. And this is early in the pandemic, and their wedding was canceled. They could not you know, hold the wedding with all their guests that were invited, but they had this food and these flowers, and they just donated it to Meals on Wheels. And not only was food distributed, but actually flower bouquets were brought to individuals who, because of medical reasons, could not go out into public. So therefore, they not only got, you know, they got their nice meal tray, but their food, but they also got a little flower commemorative of the wedding. And for the wedding couple, they felt the connectiveness to a community, even though it might have been strangers this time as opposed to wedding guests, it was still had the same effect for them, that they were connected to others. And I think that's really important. And that's, again, emphasizing part of our rituals is how we can maintain our connectiveness. And if it's our rituals may not always be connectiveness to other people, but can also be a connectiveness to our religious or spiritual beliefs. Birthday celebrations, acknowledgements, graduations, we know was very difficult for some, but you know, we're adapting. We're creating rituals that have meaning for us and to acknowledge and not to ignore some of the life transitions that take place in our families and among our friends. Car parades are a great idea. Creating virtual memories online. Outdoor activities are important, and particularly, again, because we know the recommendation is if we can do, it's better to do something outdoors in open air than to do it indoor, particularly if there's going to be more than your immediate family that you're connected with, and to definitely avoid larger gatherings. But just, you know, even communicating, you know, children playing on the sidewalk with their pieces of art, their chalk, can be a lot of fun for them. And it also, again, it can be, I've seen where, you know, people have welcomed neighbors to their home, or, you know, thanks for, you know, passing by and saying hi. The religious rituals of weddings have been drastically changed, and yet, again, people have adapted. And I think that's the important thing that we remember. In maintaining resiliency, we learn to adapt, we learn to change, and we also learn to pull on the strength and the resources that we do have in order to continue in our endeavors. So we've had to transform a lot of our wedding rituals to make them safer for others, be it to have neighbors line up, again, keeping their physical distance, wearing masks to greet the celebrants. Or I think the whole meaning of something borrowed and something blue has new meaning during COVID-19. Let's go back to some of the religious observances that we see. And again, we need to think outside the box and think about how we can continue our observance of our rituals in a safe and productive manner. Now, I want to be specific, as I said, CDC, now I work for the School of Public Health, so I'm going to speak from the public health perspective. So using information here that comes from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, okay, and they recognize how important rituals, particularly for faith communities, are as people gather or worship together. And worshiping together is at the heart of what it means to be a community of faith. But we're also aware now that gathering presently is creating a risk. So we want to reduce the risk and increase the protective factors. So these are some recommendations that come from CDC. And as you see, you'll get the PowerPoint. There's an actual hyperlink here. You can just type that in and you'll get to the CDC websites. I'm just going to highlight some of the options that we see. And these are some of the general recommendations from CDC about how we can celebrate some holidays, okay? Because the main thing is, it's not about denying anyone the right to practice their beliefs, but it should be, it's overshadowed by the need to be safe and to present the risk of the spread of the virus that causes COVID-19. So we want to avoid activities that are high risk for spread, and we consider some fun activities that create lower risk of spreading the virus, okay? And that includes also Halloween activities. I'm going to, in a few minutes, I'm going to share some information from New Jersey State Department of Health about their guidelines for celebrating a safer Halloween. It's always been important and continues to be important if someone has been exposed to COVID-19, or if they have tested positive, if they currently, you know, they need to not participate in any in-person activities. So these are the recommendations now from our New Jersey Department of Health. Okay? And again, the emphasis is on not avoiding all celebration of a holiday, but to learn to do it safely. So we know that any close contact in close quarters is going to increase our risk. We want to avoid those type of spaces. So if we plan early and plan safely, we can definitely celebrate our fall rituals. So outdoor activities as opposed to indoor parties and events are definitely recommended. And again, you can go to the New Jersey State Department of Health and you can link on this and you'll get the full recommendations. It's about a 2-3 page document. I'm just going to highlight some of them just to kind of move it along, okay? So we want to, again, keep in mind the recommendations for social and physical distancing, the need to wear masks, and Halloween masks in of themselves are not going to protect you, so it has to be a mask that covers the nose and the mouth, and then also to practice hand hygiene, okay? Minimize interaction with others, minimize contact with others that are not part of the household, okay? And again, no one should participate in these activities if they or a household member, if they or a household member has been exposed to COVID-19 or are sick, symptomatic, or have been diagnosed with COVID-19 and have not yet met the criteria for discontinuing isolation. So again, there's a period of time that is recommended for isolation if you have been exposed. And once that is over, then you can, again, with caution, have limited interaction with others. So there are some fun activities. I think, you know, many times as adults, we can be a little bit more adaptable to change in our society and change in our lives, but it can also be very difficult for younger children. And not that Halloween is an activity just for children. I just love celebrating Halloween. It's always been an important holiday to me. So there's many different ways that we can acknowledge the Halloween festivities and do that safely. Here we see recommendations for just having a movie night. You can do that with family. You can do it virtually. You can watch, even someone who might live alone or by themselves can virtually watch a movie, the same movie, simultaneously with a friend at another location. And again, there's some movie recommendations for scary movies. There's some recommendations for fun movie. I always go towards more of the fun. I'm not one that really likes scary movies. So, but the point is, it's about bringing people together. Yes, the entertainment, some of these movies we've seen time and time again, but the point is that we can share them with others, and that create part of that community and part of that connectedness and part of the rituals that we have, to watch something, to talk about it, to laugh about it, get scared about it, I guess. Okay. So there's definitely some lower risk activities that can be used to celebrate the Halloween. Decorating your own apartment or house, okay? Having virtual costume parties, decorating pumpkins with your individual families or members of your own household, displaying them. But also there's some other activities that can include, like having a scavenger hunt, doing trick-or-treating on your own home, hiding candy. Can be fun. And I know that, children might be disappointed if they're told, because it's somebody, again, it's an individual choice people are going to be making. I know many people said they're not going to be opening their doors to strangers, and that's understandable too. But there are other families that says, no, I'm not going to take the risk of going house to house. So, if kids have the Halloween connected to treats, be it candy and or, fruits and nuts and whatever, they can do that within their own home also, okay? Now, as far as the candy distribution, some people think it's great to put a communal bowl out or box out on their stoop and let children just grab a bag and take it with them. Well, the point is, if you do that, remember, children are curious, so they might not just pick up the one bag that they're going to take. They might actually kind of riff through it and handle a lot of different bags. So again, if you are using that kind of a distribution, make sure they're spaced out. It's clearly marked, just take one, reminding trick-or-treaters to keep their 6 feet social distancing, okay? A couple options here. I kind of came across this, they're real kind of interesting. Someone used safety cones and made them look like the candy corn and used them as markers about keeping people safe from a distance. In the center, you hear, these were actually printouts that they laminated. Safely, you don't use something slippery, but I guess they were like a vinyl, and they were placed on the sidewalk leading up to a house, asking, trick-or-treaters to stay back 6 feet, just like you have in a grocery store. We see the markers. Well, children can kind of maybe a little bit more responsive when they see something that is also kind of fun for them. Okay, and then we also know that some people are using the candy drops, where again, it's believed the risk of a wrapped piece of candy or treat is minimal. If it's anything questionable, then just leave it untouched for 24, 48 hours. But as long as it's wrapped and you wash your hands before you open, wash your hands before you eat it, wash your hand, people should not be eating candy en route when they're trick-or-treating, because most likely their hands have been in touch with many different things. These are some of the things we need to be mindful of and teach young people to do. But I know for myself, there's been times that I've been in situations where I was at an outdoor eating restaurant, and I got up to use the bathroom. I washed my hands in the bathroom. On the way back to my table, I happened to touch a doorknob. Okay, I sat down, I had hand sanitizer on my table, and my food had been served, and the first thing I did is I picked up a French fry with my hand and put it in my mouth. And as soon as I did that, my thought was, oh my God, I just left the restroom, washed my hands, but I touched the doorknob. I should have used the hand sanitizer, and I just put my hand on food that I put in my mouth. So number one, I should have used a fork to pick up the French fry, but more importantly, I should have been avoidant touching the doorknob, which there was no choice. It was only making it through the door was by using the doorknob. But I definitely had the hand sanitizer on my table, but I had to remind myself and be conscious of the need to use it. Putting it out on the table doesn't do me any good if I'm not going to use it. And I always carry it with me. So I think I'm using myself as an example so we have to, educate and help children to understand what could be safe for them. Here you see two different families that are using a candy drop where they're using a 6-foot tube. Some people are using, I actually heard of a carpet store that is actually giving these tubes away to families that want them because they get so many of these tubes. Other using PVC piping and just doing a candy drop. But again, making sure things that are being distributed are safe is important also, such as individually wrapped. And not having a grab bag. We know that, you know, buffet style service of any kind of food is not permissible. So the same thing would go with any kind of candy. Just putting loose candy out in the dispenser is not going to be helpful. Moving into other fall activities, which might be part of our family rituals. You know, what do we do? Be it, you know, apple picking, looking at the trees, the change of the season, but we can do this responsibly, okay? So we wanna, you know, we can do it locally, we can do it safe, we can be respectful, but we can also be prepared, recognize that we might have an idea for an activity, but it might be too crowded. So some outdoor places are even gonna limit how many people can attend at any particular time. And we might have to have an alternative plan. We might plan on going somewhere for an outdoor activity. It might be shut down, or there might be a much longer wait because only so many people are allowed to participate. Even though it's outside, there's going to be limitations placed. So we have to kind of plan accordingly and maybe have an alternative. As far as just going out and seeing the scenery, taking a, sorry, I go to the next, sorry. I'll get to that. Going back to some of the other rituals that we have, okay. That there are other, you know, others in our community celebrate other rituals because they're connected to other events, okay? So again, we have to be creative and think about what we might traditionally do and then how we can make a modification to it. What are the necessary modifications? And keep in mind, again, with whatever modification, keep it in mind that we want to reduce the risk factors, and increase the protective factors, okay? So whenever you're questioning whether something, I mean, you can, of course, you can go online and do a little research, but I think, you know, if we are mindful, just think, so what can I do to make this safer? How can I reduce some of the risk? And what can I do to protect myself and others? How can I increase protective factors? That's a typical public health mantra that we use all the time. Reduce the risk, increase protection. So going back, we have the virtual Halloween parties. Can be a lot of fun for people. And again, you know, people can dress up and show their costumes, including adults and kids, virtually online. I think what I'm going to do right now is I want to take a little stretch break. You've been sitting at least, I don't know how long today, but I know you've been with me for the past 45 minutes. So I'm going to go, remember I said I like fun movies, I don't like scary movies, so this is a little fun scene from the movie Beetlejuice. It's going to take me a minute to set this up. You're going to get sound. What I'm going to encourage you to do, and we could even, Jessica, if we want to allow people to use their video screens, they can. They don't have to. It's up to the individual. They can use their screen if they want. But basically, the real thing, what I want you to do is just kind of stand up and move around a little bit. And I'm just using this background video and music to kind of help you get into the spirit.
I was confused about using your screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just, what I was saying is, if people want,
when you shop with Wayfair, you spend less and get way more.
If right now we have everybody's video screen turned off.
Oh, yes.
So if they want to do a group dance movement, I want people to get up and stretch. So if they want to show each other stretching, or they could even sit in their chair and stretch their arms, they have that option. So we're giving them the option to use their video screen if they're used to at this point.
Okay. I'm not sure we have that option.
Oh, I'm sorry, because it's set for everybody to be video blocked?
It's a webinar, so I don't.
Oh, okay. Then never cancel that.
Yeah.
My misunderstanding of the system. So
Sorry.
you are, wherever you're watching, my suggestion is that you stand up or at least stretch in your chair. I'm going to show this little video, and I just want you to make a little movement, just a little activity to kind of break the monotony of having been sitting for the past 45 minutes. And again, Jessica, I know we got this to work, and I'm already confusing myself with how I did it.
You went into the audio of your source.
Right, so here
You had to share audio from the YouTube, I believe.
So you can bring your vision to life.
We can hear you. We can hear
For
it.
small prices, you can
Okay,
get big dreams.
It's a
Spend
commercial, I believe, right now.
It's a commercial now.
Shop everything home at Wayfair
But we
today.
don't see the video.
Right. You can't see the video.
Not yet.
Okay. Says I'm screen. I
I
know.
would rather talk about.
Okay, so screen sharing. I got to stop sharing for a minute,
Mm-hmm.
and then I want to go to the different screen. That's what it is. Okay.
Mm.
Oh. Let me. Okay.
Now we see the video. Mm-hmm.
And let's see if we hear it and see it at the same time.
Talk about.
Come on, get those hands up. Come on, do a little up. My screen is do a little stretching.
It's cute, Delia.
Get ready for it.
Daylight come and me want go home.
Otho, are you doing
Work
this?
all night and a drink a rum. Daylight come and me want go home.
Get those limbs
Stack
going.
banana till the morning come. Daylight come and me want go home. Come, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana. Daylight come and me want go home. Come, Mr. Tallyman, tally me banana.
Oh, get a little risky here. Now you're gonna want that.
6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot bunch. Daylight come and we want go home. 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot bunch. Daylight come and we want go home. Day is a day, oh. Daylight come and we want go home. Day is a day, is a day. Daylight come and we want go home. A beautiful bunch, a ripe banana. Daylight come and we want go home. Hide the deadly black tarantula. Daylight come and we want go home.
Okay, we're gonna stop there. Stop sharing, and I'm gonna go back to my other screen. Here we go. Okay, am I back to PowerPoint? Very good, okay. Just a little fun, but also a little reminder that number one, we do have to find enjoyment with everything that we're dealing with, but we also need to keep our little physical activity going on at the same time. So that's part of our protective factors, is to keep our bodies moving is very important. Okay, you know, I'm gonna move into another fall holiday, Thanksgiving, which is celebrated by many of us, okay? And again, so the guidelines that have been spoken about, talked about throughout the summer, since the beginning of the epidemic, are gonna continue for us. So the more that we can do something virtually, keeping physical distance is gonna be important. And of course, if we're in an area, if the weather is nice, if we can do something outside, it's gonna be even better. So even our traditional meal may be slightly different, okay? Again, it's, you know, what often happens in many households is people kind of gather around or come in and, you know, there's a lot of communal type sharing of meals, which is, again, it could be a nice ritual, but that's going to be an increase in our risk factors, okay? Because more people touching serving instruments and reaching into whatever it is to catch something. So, you know, doing individual portions, having, you know, 1 or 2 people in the kitchen who dispenses, you know, after washing their hands and keeping the equipment clean and everything. But also if it's a smaller group, you know, just taking meals outside and just kind of sharing it. It's really about the togetherness and not just about the food. I know that we connect food to a lot of rituals but at the same time, it's really about being together that's really important. So how we can do that, but just be mindful. And again, just like I said, here I am, a public health professional, and I'm picking up a French fry with my hand after touching a doorknob. Well, luckily I didn't get sick from it, but I'm just saying. So just think in advance a little bit, okay? If you are having a family gathering, what you can do to make it safest for everyone involved, okay? Because there is going to be some risk about all the other people that might be there, particularly if even if it's a small group, and this can also be in a faith-based group that might be gathering. Anything they can do to reduce their risk factors is going to be important. There's other activities though besides eating. And I have to, I'm laughing because I'm thinking, you know, we always had a mantra in my family is to remind each other, you know, it's food, it's not love. There's other ways we can show love to each other, but my family, we love food. But anyway, the point is that there's things that people can do outside, they can do it safely, you know, or even inside. A little, you know, families that might do Easter egg hunts can also do them in the house with mini pumpkins or gourds or whatever, or even just nuts or fruits or something like that can be hidden around the home and young people can look for them. An outside pumpkin roll game, again, keeping social distance from each other, physical distance from each other, and limited to the number of participants and keeping 6 feet apart, but it could be fun. It's also physical. Creating a gratitude list or gratitude pictures are important. There are going to be a lot of outside activities that we can do. So start now planning your bucket list. Make a bucket list of things that you want to do, and then do a little investigation and find out, is this park going to be open? How many people are allowed in? What are the safer trails to walk as far as keeping socially distanced from each other? And also having good courtesy, because you might be, some trails could be designated to be in a one-way direction if the trails allow for that, where you can enter from one point and exit from another. Some of them you go into the woods and you have to turn around and walk back out again. So having courtesy for others that are walking or hiking, to keeping your distance when someone needs to pass, or stepping into the side to let somebody else go through. But the point is, have a safety plan, have an alternative, but make sure you're outside having some fun. Going back to the gratitude, you know, there's another ritual that we can do, or it could be a new ritual for some. I know many families would gather together and on Thanksgiving would list the things that they're grateful for. Well, you can do that virtually. You can do it with a smaller group. Here we see a gratitude stone or a gratitude tree, which a family or an individual can create and just share with others. And it's a way to be mindful of the things that we're thankful for, grateful for, the things that we love. And again, we can do this safely, we can do this peacefully, and we can do it with meaning and have meaningfulness in our rituals. So I know I've emphasized several different times about social distancing. And again, I really hope we stop calling it social distancing and recognizing it as physical distance. Back in April, when we were only, you know, basically 40 days into the pandemic, Jessica Layton, in talking to some experts, started using the phrase social distance fatigue. And we definitely started to feel it. And some of us had some misinformation that, well, once the summer comes, it's not going to be that bad. Well, we know that the numbers did drop, but they also dropped because people took precautions. But, you know, as far as quarantine, it originated from the Italian phrase where a ship would be quarantined in the harbor, and it literally meant 40 days. You know, so it's not uncommon that we started to experiencing that fatigue at about 40 days. And what we're seeing now is many times we go through our own psychological and emotional cycles where we're good for a couple months and then it starts to weigh on us, and then we have to go back and revigorate or refresh or renew. So it's not uncommon that as we're coming into the fall season and our seasons have changed, we're leaving behind some of our summer activities, that we're going to have a different view of keeping our physical distance and some of the experiences that we're having with COVID-19. So be mindful of that. And what you're feeling, okay, is normal. As a social worker, I want to be real clear about this. This isn't a diagnosis. This isn't, what you're feeling is normal. And many people are feeling it. okay? We're seeing it actually across the world. This was a report that was done, okay? And you see how many people were feeling something in April and how many were feeling it in September, okay? So we need to be mindful that the pandemic is not over. We need to be mindful that we do not have a vaccine yet. We need to be mindful we don't know what we will have in the future. So we need to continue what we've been required to do and what has been recommended coming from the scientific community. And that includes our virtual workshop, our virtual workshops that we have to employ. And whatever it is, it's about people gathering together to worship the God of their understanding, to connect with the members of their community that share their faith or share their beliefs with them. And we can continue to do that, but we can do that safely. I know this morning they talked about people, it was for substance use individuals, people in recovery or dealing with addictions and the increased risk factors that we see. But there is that risk factors because many people that are involved in recovery get a sense of connectiveness and purpose by their interaction with others. And in the summer, late summer, I know a lot of meetings, 12-step meetings, started meeting outside, which was good. They kept their distance. But as the cold weather comes across, that might not be possible. So there's many different resources that we have where people can still acknowledge their recovery, celebrate their recovery, share their recovery with others, and they need to keep their connectedness. That's part of their rituals. Not everyone that is connected to again, I consider this part of a spiritual program that people have. It may not be connected to a religion, but it has their spiritual purpose of supporting and helping each other. And it's going to be important. And I think we as community members want to do what we can to help facilitate that for them. Even sharing information about it could be important. So if you do publish, say, a church bulletin or something, to make sure that people in your community know where they can find online recovery support if they need that. It's slightly different for someone who has been in recovery, but someone that is now looking, because we know the increase of alcohol and drugs are going to increase during pandemic, just like we know there's an increase in violence that occurs. So therefore, more resources that we have to share with others become very, very important. The important thing, I'm going to be winding down now, is that we have these rituals that are connected to our self-care and how we manage our energies, how we can be positive in all areas, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually, becomes important with the rituals that we create for ourselves and others. Another important ritual we need to do is to establish a separation from our work responsibilities and our family and our home and our personal responsibilities. I know many of us, maybe you get off, Saturday and Sunday, or maybe your weekend starts. I know I have a good friend who's a minister, and of course, Saturday and Sundays are very busy days for him, but he knows that Monday and Tuesday are the days that he takes for himself. Others, I know, like many doctors, take Wednesday as a day for themselves. I know some pastors that also do that, but the point is, make sure you take that time for yourself. Make sure you block out on your calendar. That's your me day. That's the time for you. That could include also time for your family. We want to have a balance between our work responsibility and our home life and our personal life. And there are things that we can wait. We don't have to get to everything every day. When you have a day off, I have a friend that he'll call me and say that he's taking the day off. And then, 3 hours later, he's telling me some of the things that he did. I'm like, that sounds like work to me. He goes, well, I didn't mean for it to work, but it ended up that I had to do this, and then a call came in. Again, unless you're on emergency services, maybe let the call go to voicemail for a while. Maybe let the email wait till the next day before you answer it. We are all essential workers, okay? And that is our new normal, Family members are now having to learn how to, do lesson plans are developed, of course, by teachers, but family members are having to. I have a friend who provides childcare, and she says, I'm now like going through a Spanish lesson with a person who is not my child. She's like, I'm there. My job is traditionally to welcome them after school, bring them into the house safely, have them change out of their school clothes into their play clothes, supervise their play activity for a couple hours till mom or dad comes home, you know? And yeah, I would sometimes have them sit in the kitchen and they would be doing their homework. She said, but now I'm working the whole day. I'm there from as soon as parent, you know, if the child is not going to school, then I'm there with them. She said, like, I got a lesson plan to teach, you know, Spanish to a young child, which again, I think it's great that we're teaching young children to be bilingual. But for this particular woman, what she's like, I'm not trained in this, you know? This is so foreign to me, not the foreign language, but as much as I was hired as daycare or, you know, to provide childcare. And now childcare is including homeschooling, you know? And she has school children of her children are of course much older. So, but the point is that it's creating a lot of new challenges for all of us, you know? But we're learning that we have to keep our community safe, our home safe, our family safe, and ourselves safe. So safety has many, many different dimensions. And what we remind people continually is that staying home is probably the safest place you can be. Whatever we can do to reduce those risks are going to be important. And again, going back to CDC, I'm not making this up. I'm relying on scientists to remind us there are things that we can do that are going to decrease our risk, and there are things that we do that are going to increase their risk. In closing, I use this quote from Eric Erikson: life doesn't make any sense without interdependence. We need each other, and the sooner we learn that, the better for all of us. So let's remember, we are in this together, and together we're creating our new normal. We have fall upon us. We'll be experiencing winter. We'll be experiencing not only change of the season, but change in the calendar year. We don't know what that will bring, but we need to be prepared. And in our preparedness, it's important that we generate some new ideas, some new rituals. And as I said before, if you have some suggestions or some conversation points, please make use of the chat box and share that so that everyone can be part of that conversation. Together, we will be okay. I hope you enjoyed this afternoon's presentation. I will be back on October 22nd for managing grief and loss during COVID-19 as another initiative that I'll be offering to you. And I know there's many other workshops will be done throughout this symposium. That's my contact information, and we will be sending you a PDF file of the handout that you can review, and it'll have links to some of the information that I shared with you. Okay? So I'm going to end there, I think.
Thank you so much, Phil.
Okay.
Yes, it stopped sharing.
Okay, very good.
Okay. Yeah, that was great. Got a lot of new tips as a parent myself. You know, there's a lot of great tips there for staying safely during the upcoming holidays. Especially now, I feel that more people are, I don't know if they're getting comfortable, or we're just, you know, we're getting used to this new normal, and we're not keeping that physical distance necessarily as much as we were in the beginning. So I do see, you know, personally, you know, families, you know, getting together more often, not necessarily, you know, covering up and things like that. So we're feeling more secure. And so I think it's important to what you spoke of about, you know, keeping that in mind, keeping that safety, and just that we're not out of the pandemic just yet as well. So it was great reminders, great tips to have fun while doing so in a safe way.
And include the
So that
rituals.
kind of,
Yeah, so, okay. Do we have time
yeah.
for the?
Yes, we have Q&A.
But again, I just want to, excuse you, Jess, I just want to acknowledge that it can be a question, but it can also be a comment. If you want to just share something that your group is doing or plans on doing, and you want to share that with others, that's also important. Okay?
Yes, you can actually, if you want to raise your hand, so we can give you permission to speak, we can do so. So if you would like to share any ways that, any ideas or any comments or questions that you have at this point, you could do so, or you can also put it in the Q&A box as well. I don't see anything right now in the Q&A.
We'll give you a minute to adjust, just in case.
I mean, the chat box had numerous positive.
I saw yes, I saw those and I appreciate them. Thank you all very much.
I can't find the chat box now, though.
I got
Here it
mine
is.
open.
Here it is.
Thank
Okay.
you, great job. Okay.
They like dancing to the Beetlejuice. That was
Yeah.
fun. Appreciate that. Like we said, we're always sitting down in front of a screen, so to
Uh-huh.
remember to move. And and people were talking about great alternatives for Halloween, family movie night, baking spooky treats together.
I see a Q&A came in. Let me see.
Yes.
Yes.
When a family member insists on throwing a birthday party for an elder in the family, I'm not sure how to handle this.
That's a good question.
Well, you know, I've learned personal experience, but also my professional experience as a social worker. We need to remember and be mindful that no is a complete sentence. If someone invites you somewhere and you're uncomfortable, you can go into a dialogue with them about why you would like to see them do something else. But as far as your participation, a flat out no, no thank you, no I can't make it, is the most appropriate thing that I can say for myself. What somebody else does with that, but again, if it becomes more of a challenge if you say you have a family member who says, well, I'm going to go, because when they come back, they can then contaminate others. So cross-contamination becomes really the issue. And I know the question was written specifically for an elderly person. I would strongly encourage that to do something virtually, okay? And some people do need to have a very direct no, that is not a good idea. You realize how risky that's going to be, you know? But as we've seen, I'm not going to get into a whole political thing here, but you know, there are people in much more positions than me that are doing some pretty outrageous stuff right now thinking that they're safe, you know? But I'm a public health professional, so I'm going to go with what scientists tell us. Scientists tells us to keep 6 feet apart, to wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, avoid any type of cross-contamination, use disinfectant, use spray, you know, cleaning and all that is all important. So I would rather, unfortunately, have to turn down somebody's birthday invitation, but hopefully they'll live longer because of my decision. And I'll live longer because of my decision.
We have another question here. What about social distancing with trick or treat?
Okay, from what I've read now, and again, I think it's going to come down to a personal choice. If you were to put a treat in a little bag, sack, whatever, and with a gloved hand, hand it to it into person, or have it dropped into their basket or their pumpkin or whatever, the risk of having the paper itself be contaminated is very, very minimal. Just like we get our mail. But if there is a concern, just the parent can take it home and just put it on the shelf for 24 hours, okay? And then even, or if it's wrapped in that paper, you know, you should not be eating any treat being handheld that's touched by humans, okay? So even, you know, I mean, I know in my neighborhood, Charlie Brown used to always joke about getting the apple or the rock, but you know, I mean, an apple could be a nice thing, but it should not be held by somebody's hand. It should be put into a bag also and handed to somebody, brought home, washed, left out for a day or two to make sure, just in case there was any risk. But the communal bowl, or letting children sort through a communal bowl of treats, even if they're individually wrapped, is not going to be safe. Because they're going to, if they sneeze, say going into up to the porch or up to whatever, they sneeze and then they touch that bowl, then other things will become, and that next child picks it up and then touches their face or their eyes or their nose. That's what the contamination is going to be. It's not from the product itself. It's from a person contacting with, and then another person immediately having contact with it afterwards.
Thank you. Second question. Can the treats be given with gloves?
You know, again, I think it's a personal choice. I'm not going to be trick-or-treating. I'm a little old for that. But if I saw someone hand me something and they had a gloved hand on, and I know they were washing their hands before they served it, then I would be more comfortable with that. You know, I've been at even small gatherings, and I've seen people do things, and I'm like, you know, I don't think that was that safe. You just kind of, you know, you put out a bowl of popcorn for movie night, but you didn't put it in individual bowls, you know, or you're using the same whatever, you know, even just sharing a salt shaker, you know what I mean? If somebody didn't wash their hands, picks up the salt shaker, passes it to me with an unwashed hand, and I pick up that salt shaker for my movie popcorn. I don't even use salt, by the way, but I'm just saying, like, I'm just being hypothetical with you. So yes, gloves are good. Washing hands is most important. Washing hands, and when soap and water is not available, then a hand sanitizer. Relying on gloves, because once a person is wearing a glove, anything they come in touch with, if it's contaminated, will get on the glove. The thing about gloves, it does help us to prevent us from touching our face and our nose and our mouth. So I'm not disputing the use of gloves. We know medical professionals use gloves. I think gloves are being overutilized by some individuals thinking that that's a protective barrier. But if they're touching many different things and then spreading it to themselves, it's not really protecting them.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you. I think it's a comment more. It says, great, I say I will not go out to eat out unless it's outside and people are pretty understanding. So, all right. Anyone else have any more questions? You could either raise your hand or type it in the Q&A box.
Yeah, someone said bake some spooky treats together. Again, a family can do that safely. And you're right in the kitchen. You're continually washing your hands with each application of whatever food you're using and the different utensils you're using. And it's also, again, we're educating children, because even that children are returning to school, they need to be mindful. A, you don't share a mask. You don't, you know, drop your spoon and hand it to somebody else, or share something, share a napkin, or hand somebody else. Again, personal space, personal safety is really important. So yeah, doing things together as a family for the holidays is important. It's another way to teach people. I think we got a new message. Oh, somebody said they love the dancing. Thank you, Leslie. To move around too. It keeps me going.
Okay, I think we can transition over to our table talk discussion, which we can still, I'm sure some of these themes are going to keep coming up. I'm just going to share my screen. And I'm going to turn it over to Gwenera to talk a little bit about our think tank, which we're going to do a little differently this time. Take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you, Phil, for a resource, a valid resource, but an abundant resource with a lot of opportunities for us to be creative in how we approach what our rituals are for this time of year and going forward. So thank you very much for that. Thank you for practical elements. I believe that's going to be quite helpful to the majority of us, especially looking at the chat and hearing some of the comments from many. So typically we would go into breakout rooms. But to do this a different way, what we're going to do is we're just going to talk basically about what we learned today. And if you raise your hand, we can promote you to where you can speak to the entire group, or if you want to, again, utilize the chat box. But we prefer to connect with you and hear your voice. So based on the information that Phil shared with us today regarding our rituals and our routines, what are 2 or 3 individual goals that you feel like you could implement or help your family implement, or maybe even your community as in regards to insurance to safety and health as we continue to navigate COVID-19? We just want to open that up to everyone to be able to participate in that. Okay, Barbara, when you're ready, you may be unmute yourself and propose your comment, question, or how you will implement what you learned today.
What I learned today, I'm going to try to implement it. I work in a substance abuse clinic, and I'm going to try to tell each client I come across so that when the holiday does come, that they're better prepared so that they won't have to go out and abuse drugs or substances more.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That I could certainly understand, and how instrumental that will be in informing your clients and keeping them aware of precautions and prevention as they pursue, as you indicated, the holiday celebrations and all of that. Okay, well, the great aspect is that Phil is going to share his presentation with us. So we will circulate that to you sometimes before we conclude the symposium series. We have a comment from Demetricia. Let me just grab that before. Oh, okay, quite a few comments are coming in now. Demetricia has offered I'll be able to utilize Phil's advice. Don't think we will be trick-or-treating. Maybe we'll watch Beetlejuice instead. Love it, love it. That Beetlejuice movement really triggered something for many participants. So thank you for that, Demetricia. And Barbara said, I think mini pumpkin hut. She liked that idea. I too enjoy that idea. I think that's fun. And then at the end, you can paint them. Like, there's so much you can do with that. There's a lot of creativity that sparks, and family time, and alternative to what we know is a ritual throughout our county. So, so Jessica, I'll turn it back over to you so that you can close out with any other comments.
Jessica?
I'm sorry, I heard someone else. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's Phil.
Phil. Yes.
Jessica, I just emailed you a PDF of the handouts. I thought I could share it. Usually I can, maybe I'm not capable. Sometimes you used to be able to share a PDF file in the chat box.
Yeah, for some reason, using the webinar feature, you cannot share files.
That was my plan, but Jessica, you have it. So if you just want to forward that to everyone with their email address.
Yes, I will send it out to all the participants.
Because if I don't do it when it occurs, I'll forget about it. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then Patricia did share that the Newark Museum is having virtual activities this week for anybody who wants to participate.
That's good to know. I really like the idea of the stone, the gratitude stones. I really like that idea.
And I've seen it in so many different aspects. I've seen families paint them and place them and ask people to come and retrieve one and leave one, just as a way to inspire and encourage each other. With all of, the different attributes, so kindness, love, all the things that we need more of, and some were more creative and, wrote different type of sentiment. So that can go a long way.
That's great. Yeah. Just a few reminders. We have our symposium days next week, next Thursday, the 15th, the following Thursday, the 22nd, and the 29th. They're all Thursdays in October. Just a friendly reminder, if you want to participate in our committee meetings at ADAPT, we have various committees working on different projects, different initiatives. Our LGBTQ plus committee will meet next Tuesday at 7 p.m. and our prescription drugs committee will meet the following Tuesday at 10 a.m. They're all virtual. Everything that we're doing at this point is virtual meetings and events. And then on October 23rd, 5 p.m. to kick off Red Ribbon Week, we are having a youth activity event called Incorruptible Essex. We have our youth coalition members putting this together to invite other youth ages 13 to 18 to participate, to learn about what we do with the Incorruptible Essex group. And we're just going to have like activities, gift card giveaways, things like that. It's going to be virtual through Zoom. So once our flyer is finalized, we're going to send that out to all the participants as well. And all our events are posted on our Facebook page at Essex Adapt. So this is just a friendly reminder about our symposium days. Specifically next week, we're going to talk about the impact on children and families. And these are our sessions at 10 a.m. We're going to have Preventing ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences, with Kelly Satcher from Family Connections. And in the afternoon, we will have strategies to increase protective factors and decrease risk factors with Joelle Torres, our manager here at ADAPT. The following week is going to be focusing on mental health. In the morning session, we'll talk about mental health consequences of COVID-19 and physical distancing with staff from Clara Mass Medical Center, Mary Hay, Niza Etienne, and Michael Doherty.
And our afternoon session, as Phil mentioned, will be Phil again talking about managing grief and loss. And the last week of our symposium, we're going to end it with a self-care and mindful meditation session in the morning with Kelly Satcher from Family Connections. And our afternoon, we're going to close it up with our resource fair, where we are going to have various providers providing information about their services and what they're doing right now during COVID, from mental health and substance abuse providers. And lastly, we'll have our closing remarks and our final raffle to raffle off gift cards for restaurants in the local area. So just wanted to give you that heads up. Everything has been sent to your email that you registered with Eventbrite, and you'll be receiving reminders as well before the sessions. Okay, last but not least, thank you for attending. Just if you can complete a brief evaluation, it will pop up after the webinar finishes. But if you're the type of person that likes to scan codes, the code is there too. You can take a snapshot with your smartphone and click on the link, and then just fill out the SurveyMonkey that will pop up. And that's about it. Thank you all for attending today. Thank you, Phil, for a great presentation that we can use in our everyday lives. Thank you, Winera, for co-hosting, and Joelle as well, and all our team here with the Interfaith Committee and our ADAPT staff. I hope you have a great rest of the day, a great weekend, and we hope to see you next Thursday for our next 2 sessions of our symposium. Have a great day.